Welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Living, with me, Mark Candelaria. I am an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I am the founder and now partner of a fabulous 20-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country. We have hosted tours over the last 20 years to Italy, Spain, and soon Napa. And in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. We are excited to now be in our second season, and our podcast is about all the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspire living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture to all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. So sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired every week. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Welcome everyone to our podcast, Inspiring Living. I'm Mark Candelaria. I hope everyone is enjoying May and the beautiful weather we have been having here in Arizona. We have had the pleasure of getting out a little bit too. In fact, it was quite the busy week as we had a project team dinner at our Candelaria kitchen on Monday night and an AR event at Vision Makers, I believe it was Thursday night. And last night we celebrated our good friend Sandra Wilkins' birthday at a wonderful party in a home in Gainey Ranch. So yes, it seems like things are slowly getting back to a new normal, which is great to see. I hope you all checked out my mom's podcast and her life story, and also check out her Mother's Day cooking class now on our Candelaria Design website. It's a great recipe, and she did an amazing job with both the podcast and her cooking class. Okay, today's podcast features Alex Trimper, who is the co-owner and managing director of Isabella Fine Art Gallery in Greenwich, Connecticut. Alex is a well-traveled gentleman who definitely inspires me and my interest in art. My partner Meredith Thompson and I had the pleasure of collaborating with Alex on the Larry Fitzgerald residence currently featured on the cover of this month's Luxe magazine, where we worked with Alex on the curating for art for the home. The art world is very fascinating, and art still proves to be an amazing investment that you can also enjoy along the way. Give this podcast a listen. It's an amazing story. I know it'll definitely inform you and inspire you. Okay, here we go. Our guest today is Alex Trimper, co-owner and managing director of Isabella Fine Art Gallery located in Greenwich, Connecticut. Alex and I met just last year while working together on the design of football star Larry Fitzgerald's Paradise Valley estate. Alex selected and sourced the artwork for the home, which included how many pieces?
It was a total of 9 pieces that went throughout the majority of the house.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, welcome, Alex. Glad you could join me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you're over there in Greenwich. I'm over here in Arizona. How's the weather over there in Greenwich today?
A little overcast, but we're definitely starting to get some, nicer, warmer weather, and lots of sunshine, which is refreshing after the kind of dismal winter we had.
Well, if you need more sunshine, we've got plenty of it here in Arizona, that's for sure. So
yeah. I remember when I was out there.
Yeah, we've got a nice weekend this week. I think it's 67, which I think this is our last cool weekend we've got, because I've seen the forecast and there's nothing but triple digits coming forward. So we're gonna really relish in this great weather we've got this weekend. So, okay, so tell us about how you got involved with this home project, the Fitzgerald residence, that's right now currently published in Luxe magazine. I know some of your beautiful pieces are showcased in that feature. How did you become a player on the Fitzgerald team?
So it was through our mutual connection, Sarah Dodo, who lives in the Westchester area and had been sourcing materials and art for Larry's home, trying to find someone that could go outside of the scope of just the inventory that they had and act as an art broker and buyer and negotiator on the behalf of Larry for the things that he most wanted.
Right.
And for me, that's one of the funnest things that I do is, clients come to me and tell me the things that they're looking for that aren't readily available and need to be hunted out and sourced.
Right. Thank you. You might have froze up on me.
Am I there now?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. So that job turned out fantastic, and that's where you and I first met, which was a lot of fun. I know we were busy staging for that Lux photo shoot, and that was quite a week, wasn't it?
Yeah, early mornings for the photo shoots and late nights.
Yes. So you brought a lot of that artwork out from Greenwich, correct?
Yeah, so for the photo shoot, because there were still some empty walls because Larry was still in the process of acquiring work.
Right.
What we did was based on the pieces that resonated with him during the purchasing portion of what he had bought. We curated additional works that actually would fill out all the empty spaces, complement the architecture, and really were in line with who Larry is as an art buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's, at least from what I remember, there's just some great diversity too in the types of art, but they all work together just absolutely beautifully. And I mean, there was a couple pieces that just absolutely caught my eye. That photo or whatever it is, collage of all of the monks. Tell us about that piece.
The young monk.
Yeah, maybe you can send us a little snippet of it because it's such an amazing piece of art, photography.
Yeah, Jimmy Nelson is world renowned for his photography of indigenous cultures from all over the world. And he travels so far and goes to some of the most remotest places on the planet and connects with the indigenous cultures and captures them as they would have been, 5, 6, 7, 800, 1,000 years ago in some instances. But that's how they are today. And that picture of the young monks is a Tibetan temple where families send their young boys because they can't afford to keep them.
Right.
And the boys go to the monastery and are tended to by the monks, and are able to not only thrive, but survive. They get food, they get an education, they get training. And that picture it's overwhelming in a sense, just the sheer number of kids and the gazes and the looks, and there's this intimacy and camaraderie between them all. And yeah, I lose myself in that piece every time I see it.
Very easily. To me, it was amazing. I think virtually every child's eyes were looking at the camera. So you could tell it was just like incredible focus is what I also got out of it, which, really harkens back to what that is all about. And you could just see it in that photograph. You could feel it.
Right. And for me, understanding who the client is, Larry requires that level of focus, that level of concentration, that level of cognitive training in order to be able to be in the moment and not distracted by the crowd, yet still be able to find the peace and serenity with himself when he's at home. So again, that's another piece to me that just really embodies who he is as a person, serene, calm, focused, and trained. So we felt that, a piece like that would really resonate with him, and it really did.
Yeah, it definitely did. And for all the reasons you just described, exactly. When I saw it, it just basically froze me in my tracks. So great job on that one. So tell us about Isabella Garuccio Fine Art. Tell us about the whole operation.
So we've been officially Isabella Garuccio Fine Art for about the last 15 years. We're a mother and son owned and operated gallery, like you said, located in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Yep.
We've worked over the last 15 years to develop a brand, an identity. Changing my mom's last name back to Garuccio was a huge change because everybody knows her as Isabella Trimper, not Isabella Garuccio. And that required a lot of effort and time. About 5 years ago, no, actually we're at 7 years now. We opened up a pop-up shop in Greenwich for my mom's birthday. It's something that she's always wanted. She's had office space, but never an official retail gallery space. So we opened that up for about 7 years ago. she fell in love with it. She loved being in the gallery. She loved having the work up and having people able to view it in a way that she'd never done before. And very quickly, I realized this was going to be moving from just a temporary pop-up shop to something that would end up being permanent.
Cool.
And we moved from the location where the pop-up shop was to where we are now at 40 West Putnam Ave in Greenwich. And have been there ever since. And it's a really beautiful space that allows us to have really sophisticated and large events. Unlike a lot of the galleries in Greenwich, we have tons of parking.
Right.
Our events, we've held events with about 400 to 500 people that show up because we offer parking services, valet, and again, it's just the ability to have that many people in the space is just it's where we were meant to be.
That's excellent. So with the whole COVID situation, I bet you're glad to kind of see that finally coming to an end and we can get back to having events. I know we're starting to have them here in Arizona. It's just fantastic to get together with everybody and see everybody's faces in 3D and not by Zoom. Although you look really good this morning, Alex, in Zoom. So, but I'm sure you look a lot better even in person. So it's just nice to see everybody again. So I'm sure you're looking forward to getting some events going.
What COVID allowed us to do as a business is take the focus off of events every 2 months and really put the focus back on our business. During normal times pre-COVID, a spontaneous trip out to Arizona would have never been able to happen because we do events every 6 weeks. So during the pandemic, our business just really flourished because we put that time and energy that we were putting into events into our branding, our marketing, our online presence, polishing and rebuilding our website. So for me, it's been a nice break, but I am really looking forward to starting events back up again. Maybe not at the pace that we were doing before, just really focusing on maybe 2 or 3 super high quality events, making sure that we have the attendance, the right art, the right people. Right. But it will be good to have that kind of group coming together again, because I do miss it. Having the interaction and the social interaction is really just another part of what we do as gallerists.
Right. Well, you just gave me a great idea for, we do our little tours, and we've been doing our tours to Italy and Spain, and we now added Napa and the Pinot wine area of Oregon. My relationship now with you and with Christopher Peacock over there in Greenwich, not to mention Sarah, I think it'd be fun to do like a 5-day tour of the Greenwich, New York area, and maybe tie it in with one of your gallery events and bring some of my clients and friends that I know love and collect art. So let's put our brains together on this. This sounds like a good thing in the making.
Yeah, absolutely. And with what most people don't realize is that behind the scenes, there's a portion of our business that deals specifically with blue chip art that we don't advertise.
Yeah.
And that's intentional because a lot of what we do with our higher profile clients is really under the radar. This is publicly the first time I've ever spoken about working with Larry Fitzgerald.
Right.
You'll never see photos of him on our social media. For me, the privacy and anonymity of our high profile clients is paramount.
Right.
And I think, one of the things that we can do is put together a really stellar exhibit of Warhols and Basquiat's and really some beautiful work that should be in a museum exhibit, and do something super special for you guys when you come out.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. And the only reason I'm bringing him up is obviously now it's out there on the Lux magazine. So we can all breathe that nice sigh of relief that we can at least talk about it a little bit. So prior to opening the gallery, your mother, Isabella, was an art advisor for many years. And then she created Art Service International in the 1980s. Tell us about that business and what spurred her to create it, Alex.
My mom has always been a massively independent and self-sufficient woman. And in the early 80s, I was at the age where I didn't really need that much attending anymore. I was pretty independent myself. And my mom is not she's Spanish from Spain, and she's very ambitious, and she wanted to do something for herself, to generate her own money, to have her own things. So she started.
Her only child, or does she? Do you have brothers and sisters?
I'm the youngest of three.
Youngest of three. Okay.
Yeah, I have a brother who's 13 years older, a sister who's 11 years older, and then there's me, the baby of the family.
That's awesome. All right, let's keep going. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. So she started off as a corporate art dealer, predominantly selling prints and posters and limited editions, because back in the early 80s, corporations didn't have big budgets. And it was just a lot of work. And what she started to do was push corporations to invest more money. And her first major client was Kraft and Pepsi. And at the time, Kraft nor Pepsi had the collections that they do now. And she started to push and ask for bigger and bigger budgets. And then eventually it just came to the point where projects were in the $800,000 to $1 million, where before they were $150,000 to $200,000. And that's really what set her apart, was that she was a pioneer in the investment art world for corporations. And she was the leading corporate art dealer in Fairfield County and Westchester for decades. There isn't a major corporate headquarters that my mom's work wasn't all over their walls.
Excellent. That's awesome. So let's go back a little bit. Your life stories are very, very interesting, and let's keep it in chronological order. So let's talk about your mom first.
Yep. So my mom was born in Cadiz, Spain, and then because my grandmother was a founding member of the Women of the Revolution against Franco, my mom and her sister were taken to Morocco, where they were raised in a French convent in Tangier.
Wow.
For their safekeeping, because sure, my grandmother was wanted.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah.
She was a revolutionary. She was just, she was someone who fought for freedom. My mom and my dad met in Morocco, where my dad was stationed in the US military, and my mom was a translator for the military, and they met at the commissary. Brother was born in Morocco, and then, 13 years later, I came along. My parents were then stationed in Mexico City, which is where I was born.
Okay.
We moved to Brazil shortly after that, and lived there for about 5 years in Rio de Janeiro. Okay. And my dad was moved again, and then we moved to Westport, Connecticut, where I spent up until my junior year.
Wow. That's quite a diverse background. So as a young kid, I'm assuming you learned Portuguese in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Portuguese and Spanish at the same time.
Okay. Then what was it like in coming to America?
It was tough. The life that we led in Brazil was amazing. And coming here, and being out of place and in a new place where you didn't speak the language, you didn't understand the culture, for me was a very difficult transition at first. Yeah. And the public school system where I was living in Westport didn't have any ESL programs. They didn't have any foreign language students. So my mom was actually my first English teacher.
Holy cow. That'd be a tough transition at that age.
Yeah. And you have to think that was back in the early 80s as well. So
early 80s. Yeah. Yeah. That would have been tough, I think. So then in high school, then where did you go to college? Where did you go from there?
So I went to boarding school 45 minutes south of London for my senior year. And then college, I went to University of Central Florida, a small offshoot called Florida Metropolitan University.
Interesting. Wow. So go ahead.
I needed a nice neutral ground between dad, who lived in London, and mom, who lived in Connecticut. And Orlando was not close enough to the beaches so that I wouldn't get distracted during school.
Exactly. Yeah, good thinking there. So during that period then, was your mom already involved in the art world, it sounded like?
Yep. She was, from the time I was about 10 years old is when she started, and continued through till present day. So she's never really stopped.
Yeah, that's great. Now, how old is your mom now, if I may ask?
You can't.
You
Well,
don't
you
get in
can't.
trouble, right?
You can, but it's at the cost of my own personal
Okay, we
safety.
won't
If I
go there
ever
then. We're
mention
going to keep your safety
it.
intact, because but let's just put it this way. I have a very close relationship with my mother too, and you know, we just did a Mother's Day cooking video together, and it's just so special to still have them in our lives, you know, and have
It
that
is.
experience. And I think the older we all get, the more we know how precious it truly is. And so
Yep.
I can sense that you have just a real close relationship with your mother.
We do. I mean, my mom has always been my greatest champion. And when I was younger, and, you know, if I ever had any issues, she was my greatest defender.
Yeah.
And she was the ferocious Spanish mama bear who would attack anybody who said anything negative about me. But as I grew up, she became my best friend.
Yeah.
And someone who has, regardless of the situation, has been there for me without question, without hesitation, and without any reserve whatsoever.
Yeah. We're both very lucky gentlemen. You realize that, right?
I really do. You know, through my life, I've seen my partners who have had various relationships with their families.
Yep.
And I see, you know, lots of friends of mine who have very estranged relationships with their family. And I'm really blessed that both my mother and my father, especially my dad and I, now are very, very close. And that took a lot of work on both of our parts. But, you know, my family and I are super tight knit. And I think that's a cultural thing as well.
Yep. Yep.
European families, Europeans in general, and especially Spaniards, family is the nexus of your existence.
Very, very true, for sure. So at what point did you merge your career with your mother's? I mean, you're in Florida going to college. How did you guys then get back together and start doing this whole art situation?
So it was in 2007 at the beginning of the collapse of the markets. I was working at a company where investment banks were my clients. So, you know, RBS, UBS,
You went into
Global
investment
Asset
banking.
Management.
That was your path originally.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the markets collapsed, and around 2007, 2008, the business that I was working with was struggling. Around 2009, my mom called me up and she said, listen, I have two options. I can either continue working, and I need your help to do that, or I can retire. And that call ended, and she's like, think about it. And I called my brother, I called my sister, and we had a family conversation. And the discussion was really simple. If my mom retired and left the art world altogether, my legitimate concern is that she would start to decline. Right. She would get bored, and with boredom comes, you know, a quick decline. Or I could go to work with her, figure out how to make it work, and keep both of us busy doing what we both really love, which is working with artists and clients and in the art world, and keep her active. Right. And that was an easy decision at that point in my life. And I literally just shut everything down that I was doing, quit my job, called her up the next day, and I said, let's do it.
That's so awesome. I love that. So that was back in 2008, and here we are, 14 years later almost.
Yep.
It's amazing how fast the time goes.
And the older I get, the faster it seems to go. And it's just, the last 15 years have really gone by in a flash.
Yeah, and it makes you realize how fast the next 15 are going to go, right?
Now that you've brought it up again, yes, it's front of mind.
Well, at least for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, it's just you have that perspective, and you realize that every decision and option that you have to make, to use your time, for instance, doing this podcast, you evaluate it and you go, is this really worth my time to do this? And so I want to really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I've really enjoyed meeting you. I know they've been short snippets, but I feel just everything you've said so far in the podcast and just the short times we've met, I just feel this really great energy that I think that, if we come together, I feel like I already know your mom, which is just something really interesting. I look forward to where this can go and what this can do for both of us. So that was my interest in bringing you on this podcast.
And I appreciate it. And again, for me in my life, that there are things that we do because it's the right thing to do, because the people that you've connected with are good people.
Yeah.
And it's done out of a place of contributing and sharing and uplifting. And to me, that is the greatest reward in having lived the lives that we do, is that we get to share and really help people.
Exactly.
One of my artists that I work with really closely, Tyler Shields, we contribute to each other's lives without purpose of benefit.
Right.
And when you give from that pure place of just caring for the people in your life, the universe rewards that kind of generosity and honesty and openness. And that's how we treat everybody in our lives, whether it's, a new client that comes in the door, a new artist, running a family-run business. People become part of that family, and they can choose. They can be a distant cousin,
right?
They can be a nagging aunt, or they can be a little brother or little sister.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that analogy, because we kind of use the same thing when we talk to our clients. We always talk to them about being friends, but I kind of like your direction of talking about it more as a family, because you're exactly right. So many of our clients have become like family. I mean, we've traveled with them, we eat dinner with them. I mean, it's way beyond friendship. So I like that. I like that what you just said. That's just awesome. And it's true.
It takes it from being a business to something that you're sharing with people, right?
Exactly.
What you do is you create things that people live in, whose entire lives encompass the space that they're in.
Right.
And you can't do that from a distance. You can't do that without, crossing what I call that professional barrier and becoming intimately involved with your client.
Yeah.
And that's what makes your designs. Yeah, it's what makes your designs so personal, and what makes your designs so unique from location to location. And it's the same thing with art. It's the same thing with what Christopher Peacock does with his kitchens.
Right.
Good business people who provide a product or a service have to get emotionally involved with their clients and entrenched in how they live their lives and the things that are important to them in order to give them what they want.
Right. It just manifests out of that relationship is what happens.
Yeah.
And so I totally agree. It's really great to hear someone else say that, because I feel a lot of times I'm preaching to the choir and no one's listening to me. But you just ratified everything I preach to my team every week. It's like, what we do in providing a set of plans is a small aspect of the total picture of what we're creating for our clients. It's an experience. And it goes beyond the time frame of drawing that set of plans. Many of our relationships have gone for 10, 20, 30 years now. So, once you understand that perspective, you approach each job out of the gate with a whole different, mindset. And that's what I love about it. And a lot of clients don't get it until they get into it. They go, wow, we're having dinner, we're doing this, we're traveling. This is way beyond just getting a set of plans. And like you said, the universe takes care of you. It's not like I worry about the financial aspect of it. We've got a good model, so we know it works, but we don't have to focus on that model. We can focus on the experience.
Right. And that's the thing, right? I have clients who are new to us because, again, we've only been a gallery for about 7 years and in this location for 6 years, who come to us. And there's one in particular that I'm thinking about who has the most insane collection. It's, half $500 million.
Wow.
Easily. Picassos and Monets and Chagalls and Renoirs and Basquiat's. And he came in looking for a couple of pieces for a vacation home, and we just started talking. And I was like, well, it's only in the Hamptons. I said, why don't I meet you there, and we can take a look at the space and see what works best.
Right.
And he looked at me like I had 3 heads and 6 arms. And he's like, Alex, I've bought hundreds of millions of dollars in art, and not one art dealer, not one art broker, not one gallerist could tell you what the inside of my home looks like.
Interesting.
And that to me just seems so foreign, like being in someone's residence, figuring out maybe what they want isn't exactly what works best. And being in their space allows you to really tailor what you offer them and present to them ideas that they may have never even thought of before. And that just morphs the relationship into something where you're not just selling a widget,
right?
You're creating something of value that is an intimate experience, that when your client looks at that piece of art, there's that personal connection to it, to their story. And those are the sort of things that we do regularly that I know very few gallerists that spend time in their client's home.
Yeah, that's really good. So let me use that as a segue here, because I love that. You know, obviously I deal with a lot of designers. My wife's a designer. So what comes first, the decoration or the art, or both? Are they independent? Do they work together? I mean, I think it would be really kind of hard. Like, I've got a beautiful painting here that I've collected in my living room, and I didn't really think about how it ties into the decor of the house. I bought it because I love that piece, and it really does work with the decor, maybe just subconsciously. But we didn't buy it. We didn't buy it to decorate the room. Let's put it that way. How many people buy art to only decorate the room, and how many people buy art because it has meaning to them?
So it depends on who you're dealing with. Like when we work with designers who have a very fixed aesthetic,
right,
and they're creating a magazine cover showplace.
right,
the art really has to be something that integrates into the design.
right.
When you're dealing with someone who has a home that it's been decorated, like during the pandemic, what I found is that people were doing a refresh, right? When it's an independent client coming to you without the assistance of a decorator, that's when it really becomes about their wants and needs, and putting something in a space that resonates with them. Because if it resonates with them and it's in their space, it by natural extension will fit in the room.
Right.
Yep. It's when you put something into a client's home that they have no connection with, that it is just a pure financial transaction, that, pieces end up sticking out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I tend to choose the point where I pick art because it has meaning to me, and I don't worry how it ties into the room per se. That's just me.
Yeah.
But to me, every piece of art that I have has some specific meaning or memory or something. I guess I've collected some art, knowing they're great artists, and I don't think my initial reason for collecting the art was for financial gain or what's the word I'm looking for? Where something gains value. I bought it because I loved it.
Right, for the appreciation value of the
There
pieces.
You go. Right.
Yeah. But there are those people who want both. And and even within that, like if we're dealing with a client who wants an Alex Katz or a Basquiat, let's just say, there are pieces within that body of work. When you present to a client, if you present 3 or 4 alternatives, there will always be pieces that resonate more with them.
Right.
But it's still that investment value piece, and with big named artists, it's tough because, especially if they're deceased, because the inventory is in private collections.
Right.
Whereas you're dealing with living artists, it's a lot easier because you have a broad body of work that you can work with.
Right. Okay. So that was another question. I love to paint. My original goal in life was to be an artist, and I just found architecture was paying the bills a lot easier and a lot quicker.
Well, it's a different type of art.
What's that?
I said what you do is the different type of art.
It is. It exactly is, for sure. But I still love to paint. I'm hoping as I retire, I get a little more time to paint, but that hasn't happened yet. But what my question is, as an artist, especially one that's, just starting out or whatever, and let's just say I'm halfway decent, do you reach out to them or do they reach out to you? How does the process work?
It depends. For example, I'll use because Tyler's a really great example. He's an APEC artist. He's at the top of his game. He's internationally known. The way we came to him was that we had a client that was looking for a couple of his pieces, and at that time we didn't directly represent Tyler.
Gotcha.
So what I did was I reached out to him via email, told him a little bit of our story and who we were. And then I listed the names of the pieces that our client was interested in. And then he responded back to me directly. And that was that way.
Yeah.
Another thing that my mom loves to do is for her, Instagram is the greatest resource for finding artists that she likes. And for her, it's irrelevant the followers, it's how the pieces and the body of work that they have resonate with her.
Right.
And then we reach out either through Instagram or email that way. On average, though, a month, we get about 250 to 300 inbound inquiries for representation from artists at all points in their career.
Interesting. Yeah. So social media has helped a lot of artists, I think, in terms of getting their work out there to the masses, which I think is fantastic, to be honest with you. So I really applaud the fact we've got that platform to put our work out there to people. Because I mean, there's only so many Lux magazines, and they're only on the shelf for so long, and that's been, and all of this stuff has really, I think, created such an interest in people's appreciation of art, architecture, music, everything. It's just such a wider gamut, wider platform that people can reach everybody now.
It is. And, the very act of posting something legitimately puts it out to the universe.
Right.
Anybody with a cell phone, anybody with an internet connection can find that post.
Right.
And it's a leveling, it levels the playing field for young emerging artists who want to build a following.
Exactly. Yep. And art is one of those things I remember when I was younger, art takes time. It takes time to sit there and paint and think and work. And when I was young, I always felt like I was missing the party. I was like, I'm stuck here in my studio for hours and hours. Everyone else is out having a great time. And it's very difficult. I think it's a lot easier as you're younger. You don't feel like you're missing as much. And you're just like, screw it. I've already done all that. I ain't missing that much at all, actually. I'd rather sit here and paint. So I find it's a lot easier to do it now as I'm older than it was when I was younger.
And it depends, like it also, for me, like I know a lot of artists that for them, the process of creating allows them to shut out the noise of the world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that isolation and that solitude that bothers more social people like yourself and me is what really allows them to express whatever inner angst or joy.
Right.
My partner's that way, can spend hours and hours at home in the studio just painting, and I'll come home and he'll be as happy as a lark.
Yeah. It is.
But me, it drives
me. It is. It's totally different.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I bet you meet some interesting artists, though. I bet you could write a book about just the different ways they go about their process and their art and their craft, and how their experience of moving through the art world has changed their lives. I think it'd be very fascinating.
And again, because our artists become part of our family.
Right.
I understand how their relationships, their personal experiences, their ups, their downs, their mood swings, their joys, their losses, you can see the impact that it has on their work. Right. And for me, being a gallerist, being able to communicate those stories while respecting their privacy allows buyers to resonate with the piece even more, because it's, you know, it's great to have a piece on your wall, but when someone comes into your home and you as the owner can relay a story about the piece to your friends, it makes you feel knowledgeable, which most people have varying degrees of knowledge in art, but it shows that personal connection, that it's not just a commodity. You know,
Right.
there are people who collect Bentleys and Rolls Royces and all sorts of things, but art is one of those things that when people come into your home and they're like, oh, very nice painting, you're like, oh, let me tell you.
Right.
You think it's nice, but let me tell you the little story behind this piece.
Yeah.
That just, and that allows you to share your, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. How many of your curators and customers that buy art, how many of them actually get to the opportunity to meet the artists?
Very few.
Very few, huh? I always
Very
wonder
few.
about
Most
that.
of my artists are very private. If it's a big collector, or you know what, that's I have a young collector. He's 25 years old, lives in New Jersey. He owns 5 or 6 Tyler Shields pieces, and when Tyler comes to the East Coast on his next trip, I've scheduled a dinner for the two of them.
That's cool.
You know, so when the opportunity arises, if the person is local, and that's the trick, right?
Yeah.
It has to be a coinciding schedule thing. I always try to find people who resonate with an artist that we represent, the opportunity to meet with them.
Right.
You know, we represent a wildlife photographer, and when he comes into town, we organize a huge dinner at a local restaurant in Greenwich, and give them the opportunity to have a sit down and a book signing.
Cool.
So creating those unique experiences with artists when they're available,
Yeah.
that's part of the value add that we do as well.
I think that's a huge opportunity, to be honest with you. I'm just thinking about it in terms of my medium, architecture. I think it'd be really tough if people only bought my house and I never got to meet them or design the house for them. I know it's a different art, and we obviously do spec homes where we kind of do that. You know, we'll design the whole house and someone just buys it, and sometimes I never meet them. I prefer where
Right.
I do get to develop the piece of art with them and it becomes their piece of art. Does that ever happen in the art world where you have a great artist and you have a client that says, I want a Tyler, Shields piece. Can I sit down with him and talk about what I'm looking for? Does that process ever happen in the art world?
So consignments happen all the time.
Okay.
You know, the family that bought the Fitzgerald house.
Yeah.
I actually am doing a lot of the artwork for the new owners now.
Yep.
And they found a piece. It was rather small. It was 6 by 12. They fell in love with it, but they wanted it double the size.
Gotcha.
If not triple the size. So I went out to the artist who's in Brooklyn. He and I sat down. We took the little small piece, which they returned back. And then he created a consignment of 2 canvases that mirrored each other, same color palette, same design, and created those specifically for those clients. And I do have designers that love a specific artist, but
Right.
want a specific sized and dimensioned piece. And we do consignments quite a bit, which is, that's a fun part because that's totally creative. You're making something specific to the client's needs while the artist still yep, exactly.
Yep. That's awesome. I love that. So I know you like to travel. Let's switch subjects a little bit here because we both love to travel. What are some of your favorite places?
So my partner and I went to Peru August of 2019.
Okay.
And we spent time in Cusco and Lima. And out of everywhere that I've been in the world, there was just something that resonated with me about both Cusco and Lima that really changed my perspective on life. You know, the history, the architecture, the ruins, and then getting to meet people that are indigenous to that area of the world who just open their arms. You know, traveling as a gay couple, it has its problems everywhere that you go, but everywhere that we went in Cusco, people were just so accepting, so loving, so kind to the both of us. And Kyle and I have talked about this a couple of times, that, you know, when it comes time to just, all of our family has gone, we're older and we're just ready to throw in the towel and retire. We really want, Peru is probably where we're going to go. The food in Lima is just off the charts. Some of the best food I've ever had in my life.
Wow. Well, that Peru's been on. I've got a good friend that went to high school that lives there, and he's been pulling on me to come down there. So you just gave me a little more incentive.
I will give you a list of restaurants that you need to go to, that the food is just out of this world.
That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. All right, so Peru is definitely on my hot list then, for sure. So tell us what's hot in the art world right now. Why is art such a good investment, or is it a good investment?
It is. You know, like with anything, you need to kind of gauge where you are as an individual and the amount that you want to allocate of your personal resources to art. You know, and the proof in the pudding for me is that every single major investment bank on the planet has an art portfolio where they buy 10 or 15 major pieces, and then they go out to their top investors, and the investors invest in the piece, and the investment bank or hedge fund holds on to the inventory for 5 or 10 years, and then they put the whole collection up for auction.
Interesting.
And there's whole divisions now that are alternative assets within every single major investment bank and hedge fund that deals in art investing.
Right.
You know, and just if you look at the auction house records that have been happening over the last couple of years, you know, you've gone from tens of millions to now hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars per piece. For me, I'm very much like you. I buy it because I love it, but I also am really conscious of who I invest in. Like right behind me is Tyler Shields, and I have some Randall Ford. And I know when I buy a piece, what the potential for that piece to increase in value is. Right. And those are the sort of discussions that I also have with clients. Like, hey, you know, this piece at this price point, it's more, you're buying it as a decorative piece. Right. You'll be able to recoup your money. You're not going to lose money on it. And then there are those pieces like Tyler Shields that I know in 5 or 6 years, that little piece right behind me, I'm going to be able to get double, if not triple, the value of that piece.
Interesting. Yeah, I think what's cool is your investment banking background. You know, you have that perspective kind of ingrained in your thinking. And you know, art is art. It's beautiful. But it's also an asset, just like you said. And it's just like if you have a portfolio in your 401k, you don't have all of your entire fund in one stock. I mean, you could, but it's pretty risky. It's probably better to diversify, just like your other assets. Correct?
Right. And it's a commodity equivalent to gold, silver, platinum, and it has volatility just like anything in this world. But historically, over the last 30 years, the art market has been more stable than the investment banks.
Interesting. So one of the things that is on everyone's radar now is crypto and the NFT market, which I'm still trying to learn and trying to talk to different people about what it all means. And you know, I'm actually meeting with a good friend who's in that world tomorrow, and we're looking at doing an NFT Candelaria design house. And so, you know, I know it's all changing. What do you see from your perspective in terms of artists creating, you know, tokens of pieces of art?
So in essence, it's always existed. It's just been repackaged into something that's new. I'll give you the perfect example. When for Larry's personal collection, we created a piece from an existing piece of work of Tyler Shields. It's called Point. It's the ballerina slipper.
Yes.
And part of what Tyler and I came up with was creating, and Tyler did this already, but it had never been packaged this way, was creating a video of the production of the piece, from the creating of the negative to the exposing the negative to the paper, and then the development of the actual photo, as part of the provenance for the piece. But it's a digital image, moving image,
Right.
a movie of the piece. So in one aspect, it's always existed. I am talking with a couple of artists that are working in the NFT world to try to figure out how to kind of bring it into the gallery world, because right now it exists only on a number of limited platforms that are outside of the gallery world. So for us, it's like the antithesis of what we do. But it's now taken a huge crash, right? The pieces that have been bought and sold for hundreds of thousands of US dollars in cryptocurrency are now valueless. People who own them can't do anything with them, and there's no buyer. I think once it migrates into the realm of galleries and museums, it'll have a foundation of legitimacy, but right now it's one of those flash in the pans where you're paying 50, 60, $100,000 for a piece that legitimately has no auction record, no auction history with the artist, and there's no way to truly value what you're buying, because some artists that are getting these insane dollar amounts are completely unknown.
Right. It's only subject to whoever is willing to pay it for it. So, and what are they basing that value on?
Right, which is how the whole art market operates, right? A piece is only worth $100 million because someone will pay the $100 million for it. The moment that someone decides, no, I'm only going to pay 50 million for that piece, then and that becomes the consensus, then $100 million piece is now only worth 50.
Exactly.
But apply that across the board. People only pay for gold what people will pay for gold, for silver, for Rolls Royces and Bentleys. So our entire system of commerce is based on agreement.
Right.
That someone tells us this is the price and we either agree or disagree. Right. And the more people agree, that validates the price of whatever it is that's being transacted.
Yeah, and being from that investment background, I just think right now with all the paper and debt that's been printed, the art has always been a great inflation hedge. And I think when you do see some of it, because it's a real asset. It's not, you own it. It's on the wall, and it's by someone famous, and it's never going to be made again. And so, I think the art world is about prime for, and maybe you're already seeing it. I think some of this is just going to go completely berserk, especially now that all these houses are being built and refurnished. I know what we've got on the board. There's going to be a lot of empty walls that are going to need to be filled with some really amazing artwork. So I think the art world is going to go completely berserk in the next 5 to 10 years if it hasn't already.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this. I know as a country and as an economy, we have suffered, and I have friends and family who I'm working with through this really difficult time.
Yep.
We as a business have truly been blessed that because only 15% of our client base is local to us in Greenwich.
Okay.
We've been able to really do quite well during this time because people of all different income levels were stuck in their home for 1.5 years. So that one empty wall space that had been bugging you, but not enough to do anything about it. Now you're seeing it 24/7, or things that you didn't like. Now you're forced to deal with it all day, every day.
Yep.
The construction industry, the art industry, the interior design industry have all boomed during this time because people are stuck in their homes and want to make it as beautiful as possible, because now they're spending infinitely more time at home than they ever before.
Yeah, and I think I know now everyone's got the travel bug, so I think you're going to see a big travel surge. But I believe what'll happen this is my prediction, is everyone's going to travel. They're going to collect more. They're going to, the home has become something they're more aware of now.
Yeah.
Even after now we start traveling, the home is still going to be something that's going to resonate with them much more now than it did prior to COVID, I think.
Yes.
I think people just discovered it, and they got great benefit. They got great comfort from it. And so I think it's going to have a real cultural shift going forward with this country and the world. I think home has become something really valuable to people finally.
Yeah, I mean, when you're pre-COVID, what was it, like 10% of our lives were spent in our home,
Yeah.
and 90% was spent out at restaurants and traveling and at work and networking events and galas and balls and movies.
Right.
And for a solid year, 24/7, home was it.
Yeah. So what's going to happen, what I think, and I'm starting to see it, is, everyone's either built a new home or they've remodeled that kitchen. It's fantastic. Yeah, they'll go and eat out, but then they're going to come, we want people to come out. They've been home cooking. So a lot of people have learned how to cook. And so they're going, instead of going out, let's have everyone over to dinner. And once they discover how beautiful an event that is to have people over, which we've been doing for years, and people always walk away like that was one of the best evenings we've ever had. I think people are gonna really appreciate it. They're gonna see the art, they're gonna see the home, and they're gonna go out in the garden and enjoy a beautiful dinner. I just think that the level of how we live is going to improve dramatically.
I think so, because again, for generations, the home was the center of everybody's world. If you look at the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, it isn't until the early 70s where we dislodge ourselves from our homes and disconnect with our immediate family. The onset of technology, social media, that telephone in your hand perpetually.
Right.
And what the pandemic has done for me, and what I've seen in the people in my lives and people like yourself, is that in order to be able to live with each other for that full year, we had to put our phones down. We had to learn how to talk to each other.
Slow down.
There were only so many Netflix series that you could watch before you'd end up with a numb bottom. So you needed to do things like baking and gardening and things that got you outside of the house and connecting with your children. And that's been a huge shift, is the relationship between my friends and their children has completely changed. There's this new pride, a new joy. And kids don't find their parents to be obnoxious right now because they've had that ability to really work through whatever issues were unspoken because they were forced to. We've been forced to deal with a lot through this period of time, and we either dealt with it or repressed it. And those people who repressed it were always destined to never change. But I feel consciously, as a society and as a people, this has really made us infinitely more aware of our own journey and how we interconnect with people.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. I'm really interested to read what, beyond this, some of the writing and artwork that comes from this whole transition that I think is really still happening. It's everything you just said. So I think there's going to be just a huge cultural shift in the way we operate, live, connect with people that we're going to see in the next 10 years from this event. So
right.
I totally agree. So last couple questions. If I wanted to start my own personal art collection, Alex, how is a good way to go about doing that?
The first thing to start is budget, right? Like anything that you do, you have to figure out what you want to spend. And the difficult thing for a lot of people is migrating from that home goods / IKEA art mentality into putting something of value on your wall.
There you go.
And that, again, the benefit that I have, having worked in investment banking, is that I know that art is an investment.
Sure.
And if you take that journey on your own, it's a very difficult journey to take. And finding someone that you trust first and foremost, as an advisor, as a guide, someone who will take the time to educate you, and walk you through it and help you to make educated decisions while you learn, it is the key. But the first thing is always, like with anything, right? How much do you put in your 401k? How much do you invest into the markets? It's the same thing.
Sure.
And in some
portfolio, basically.
Right. Yep. And it's acknowledging that is becoming part of a portfolio that you're building above and beyond just stocks and gold or anything else, or a home.
Above your stockbroker, beyond your stockbroker, you have an art broker. You have someone that helps you with that, making that determination. Where's the value? What should I invest in next? I've got 100,000 I'd like to put to work in art. How do I go about it? What are my best moves? I would talk to Alex.
Right. And that, part of what I do is if a client says to me, hey, I want to buy X and it's a higher ticketed price piece, I'll come to them with the last 3 years of auction records. And this is before we even start looking at specific pieces, so that they have an awareness of what it's going to take to buy that type of art.
Excellent.
Right. So, and I'm not just saying to them, oh, by the way, you want to buy a de Kooning, okay, get ready to lay out about $50,000 to $100,000. I'm saying, no, look, here, we have prints, we have originals. This is the history of the pricing.
Yeah.
Is this where you want to be in terms of an investment? And the answer to that is either going to be yes or no. A lot of times it's like, well, let's start a little bit lower than that. What's the next best option?
Excellent.
And yeah, so in that regard, when it is a physical financial transaction and you're trying to still find work that they connect with, it's a process. But you need to be able personally as the buyer to allocate the time to make educated decisions as you would with an investment portfolio, because you don't just go to an investment advisor and say, here's $100,000, go make me some money.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same process. You'd sit down, you'd look at your strategies, what's your objective? Here's the resources I have. What's the best way to put this into play?
And what do I like? Do I like paintings? Do I like sculptures? Do I like photography? Do I want a combination of all three?
Right. I love it. It's so good. This is awesome. So thank you so much, Alex. This was very, very informative. This went way beyond what I was expecting, and in a very, very good way. You're just an amazing guy, and I'm looking forward to further developing my art collection with you. So I'll definitely be in touch, and we'll put some money to work here, because I just love the way you operate. I love the way you think. And I love the connections to the art world that you have. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to getting into the kitchen.
Yeah, we're definitely doing that. So we got Christopher working on my kitchen actually. So it's in play, and I'm looking forward to having that here this fall. So we'll get everyone together this fall as the goal to have a Christopher Peacock, Alex Trimper evening at the Candelaria, Casa Candelaria. How does that sound?
Fantastic. I'm super excited.
All right. Well, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Hey, how do we find you on Instagram and stuff real quick?
So the gallery's Instagram is really easy. It's IG Fine Art. Our website is www.igifineart. And those are the two best ways.
Okay, perfect. And my daughter Tiffany will post a lot of information on our episode stories to get connected, and definitely check out their pages. That's since we became friends, I just love following your work and the artwork that's on there. So fantastic. Thanks again, Alex.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
And tell Tiffany I said hi.
Okay, I sure will.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Alex. Great job. I learned so much, and I will definitely be in touch to discuss some art purchases, so get ready. Make sure to check out the current Lux magazine for some of Alex's curated treasures in our feature story. Okay, I will be taking the next week off to work on my book. We are making great progress. I want to thank David Brown and my daughter Tiffany, who've been pushing me along. And we're getting close to our deadline to submit, so the sprint is definitely on. Thank you to all who have contributed. It's going to be fantastic. 12 spectacular Candelaria design homes, along with 12 of my favorite recipes. Okay, our podcast keeps growing nicely. We really need and appreciate your time to give us a rating and review. We have started our contest again for those that give us ratings and reviews, and here's how it works. Those that give us a rating and review between now and July 1st will get their name in a drawing for one of our Candelaria design tours. We will cover their round-trip airfare for the tour. I just returned from the Oregon Pinot Country, And we have an amazing tour coming in 2022 where we will stay in a beautiful hotel up on a hill overlooking the Willamette River Valley. And so stay tuned for more details coming on that. So go right now, give us a rating review along with a subscribe, and then email or direct message me that you did, and we will get your name in the hopper for this drawing. Okay, we had some nice reviews last week, so thank you. And so please also send me a direct message or email so we can get you in the contest. All right, we do our best to inspire living in everything we do, from our podcast to our cooking classes to our tours, and of course with our Candelaria design homes. Okay, have a great week, everyone. Stay safe, and let's all live our lives with love, compassion, grace, and positivity. See you next week.
Because Inspiring Living is all about the people and the organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. This is how Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything.
I want to say a big thank you to my good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. I want to thank the Stockett team along with so many others who contributed to the success of our fabulous demonstration kitchen in our new Candelaria design office expansion. You will have to check out our online video cooking classes, and our kitchen is amazing. I've had the pleasure of working with the Stockett team for nearly 40 years on many spectacular projects, and trust me, they are the epitome of excellence when it comes to tile, marble, and granite work, bar none. Their skill and customer service is impeccable, and the bottom line is they are just good people. I have traveled with, dined with, and just had good times, both personally and professionally, with Dave Stockett and his lovely wife, Becky, and they are the best. When it comes to your next tile and stone project, make sure Stockett Tile and Granite is a part of your team.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.